Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. You're in for a treat. We've got our friend Asir from Microsoft and Adib from VMware talking to some folks who are running Spring Boot applications on Microsoft Azure at astounding scale. So take it away. This is going to be a good one.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adib Saikali, and we have a great session for you today with our friends from Digital Reality Trust, Morgan Stanley, and Bosch to talk all about how Azure Spring Cloud is really helping them in their efforts to run Spring on Azure. I'm a principal solution architect with VMware, came through the Pivotal acquisitions. My customers like to call me the code janitor because they like to give me large pieces of code and say, how can we make this code more cloud native and how can we run it on the cloud? So that's what I do.
Hi, I'm Asir at Microsoft. I'm on point for everything customers need to build. Developers need to build, migrate, and scale Java applications on Azure. I'm also a Java developer. I started in '95 with JDK1, and I've been having amazing time with Java ever since. So let's start with what is Azure Spring Cloud, right? Azure Spring Cloud is a fully managed service for Spring Boots that lets you focus on building and running the apps that run your business without the hassle of managing the underlying infrastructure. You can simply, like developers simply can deploy their jars or code, and Azure Spring Cloud will automatically wire everything up with the service runtime. Once deployed, you can easily monitor app performance, fix errors, and rapidly improve the applications. It's well integrated into Azure's ecosystem, and it is enterprise ready. The service is jointly built, operated, and supported by Microsoft and VMware. And the exciting part is Azure Spring Cloud is built on Kubernetes. But you get the full power of Kubernetes, but you don't have to really worry about learning or managing or anything to do with the Kubernetes level at all. Let's go into a little more details here. You see that big rectangle? That big rectangle is Azure Spring Cloud. It is built on Kubernetes. It's built on Azure Kubernetes Service. Each service instance has 2 dedicated Kubernetes clusters. They are managed by Azure Spring Cloud and completely abstracted away from the users. The service runtime with managed Spring Cloud components, app lifecycle, log stream, and many more service runtime components are managed in one of the 2 Kubernetes cluster. That is represented on the right-hand side rectangle. Your apps are running in one of the 2 Kubernetes clusters. Again, it is represented in the left cluster in the diagram. Now, your apps can interact with any Azure service or external service or on-premises systems as well, using Spring idiomatic interfaces. You can get your logs, metrics, and alerts. They're all available through Azure Monitor, and you can pick them up in your favorite tools, whether it's Elastic or Splunk or New Relic or Dynatrace, you can pick them. You can secure your apps using Azure Active Directory. You can automate everything end-to-end from idea to production using your favorite tools and your platforms. As a developer, you can continue to use the development tools that you are familiar with, whether it's IntelliJ or VS Code or Eclipse or Maven and Gradle. Net, it's an easy way to get started. You can focus on your business objectives and everything else is taken care of for you in the cloud. Now, do you have to manage any of these things? No, not at all. You don't have to manage anything. Azure Spring Cloud has absorbed all the complexities with the infrastructure, hosting Spring Boot applications, app lifecycle, managing microservices, blue-green deployments, pushing logs and metrics, and so on and on. And the good thing is they are all supported by Microsoft and VMware. We're going to give you a short demo at this time. Are you ready? Let's take Spring Boot applications to cloud at scale. I have an app composed of Java microservices, and I want to run them on Azure. This is a popular repo, a distributed version of Spring Boot Pet Clinic. You can see an API gateway as the entry point. The operator comes in, and there are 3 microservices and 1 Spring Boot admin server. We're going to deploy to Azure Spring Cloud. I took 3 simple steps. I created the service, created apps, and deployed the jar files. You see an instance of Azure Spring Cloud for the Pet Clinic project. You can see the apps up and running at scale right now. API Gateway is the entry point. So I go here and start clicking this particular assign FQDN. At this point, I see the actual application coming up. I can see all my customers and their pets as well. You can see John Coleman has about 2 pets. I can also see my dogs here. I can also start scheduling visits using this system. So here, when I open up John Coleman, you can see that he has two pets, and I can start adding a visit right here. When I deployed these jar files, I did not have to do anything other than just deploy them. Do we have enough instances of the customer service? Let me scale that out. Right now, there are about 6 instances. I can increase to say 200 instances, or maybe 500 instances. As soon as I save, it'll start scaling out. I can also auto-scale. Here I'm looking at auto-scale. Now I can auto-scale by metric or by schedule. Let's look at the metric. In this, I'm scaling out by the CPU usage, right? Now here, when the app usage, CPU usage goes up by 50%, I'm going to ask it to increase the number of instances by 2. Similarly, when the CPU usage goes down, I'm going to ask it to, when it particularly goes down below 30%, I'm going to ask it to reduce the number of instances by 2. I can also auto-scale by schedule. For example, I can scale in on Saturday morning and scale out on Monday morning again. So many things are managed for you. Now, what if there's a problem with your app, and how can you see what is going on? You can view the logs for all your apps and even run custom queries. You can send all your logs and metrics to any log aggregator, say Log Analytics or Elastic or Splunk. Here, I sent them to Log Analytics workspace. Here, I'm running a query to bring all the logs for my applications, particularly the ones where I see errors and exceptions. I can quickly go through and open up one of these and understand what is going on. I can also render them as a pie chart. Now, if you're a developer like me, you probably want to get your logs directly on your dev machine here and say AZ Spring Cloud app logs. So when I run it, it will directly bring all the logs right to my dev machine. This way, I can figure out what went wrong. In this project, I used many microservices to scale out my components individually. You can use application insights to monitor which app calls are slow so that you can tune them or know when app instances are bombed out because of some production data that came in. So here you see the API gateway is here, the calls are coming in, and they're going into customer service, and some calls are going into vets, and some calls are going into the visit service. Now behind them, there's a Pet Clinic SQL database, MySQL database, right? So let's zoom in. Let's say I want to drill into one of these paths, right? So I go here and I drill into one of those paths. When I drill in, it gives me some meaningful insights. It's giving me an option to investigate the performance. I can drill into it. When I drill, it gives me all the calls that happened in the last 4 hours. I can choose one of them and go deeper. When I go deep, it gives me the complete end-to-end transaction that happened along this path. And you can see all the way down to here's the SQL and the SQL query that that was executed for this particular operations. Now, back to the application map, it gives you some incredible views of all your applications.
meaningful insights, and actionable logs and metrics. Did you see 5 million calls in the last 4 hours? Yes, they are in production at cloud scale, running at 30 million calls per day. Now, you can simply run manual scale slider or the auto scale to multiple billion calls a day in a matter of minutes. Now, you can also go deeper into performance or failures and availability. So here you see the performance blade where all the methods are, all the operations are listed here. You can also look at the dependencies. So these are all the dependencies. So dependency calls were about in the last 4 hours, there were about 40 million calls, right? You can also start looking at your failures, right? Now you may have some business metrics. You can track them right here. Let's see. In this particular application, there are pet owners, there are pets, and there are visits. We keep track of them. That way you can see the rhythm of your business across time. Do you have to write any code for all these monitoring? No, not at all. I simply deploy my charts, nothing else. All these data flows in effortlessly. Azure Spring Cloud is a fully managed service for Spring Boot apps that lets you focus on building and running the apps that run your business without the hassle of managing infrastructure, monitoring, or automation or app lifecycle, and so on.
We'll switch to the okay. So thank you for watching that. It gives you an overview of Azure Spring Cloud. So today, Adeeb and I invited a great set of panelists from Morgan Stanley, Bosch Digital Realty, who have been very successful in deploying and accelerating Spring Boots at scale. So let's turn it over and start with Dhiren.
Thank you, Asir. Hello, everyone. My name is Dhiren Shah. I'm part of Operations Technology at Morgan Stanley. I have two roles here. I am tech area lead for Security Settlements Fleet, and I'm also the lead architect for Operations Technology. I'm working with a very talented and innovative team in security settlements to build the next generation of our platform. Security settlements platform facilitates movement of stocks and bonds between market participants based on trading activity. We process millions of messages per day in our global security settlements platform across major financial markets. We decided to approach this program in stages with the goal of developing a cloud-based, message-oriented item porting solution that can horizontally scale with separate data stores, command and event handlers. For the first phase, we migrated from mainframe to Spring Boot apps. Then we deployed Spring Boot apps to Azure Spring Cloud and ran a production parallel across a few selected markets. The final phase will involve scaling to markets across the globe and sunsetting our mainframe systems. Azure Spring Cloud is at the heart of our solution, running modern Spring services for command and event handlers and reporting. We also leverage other services, including SQL databases, Keyword for measuring secrets and zero trust, Azure Monitor for log analytics and application insights for end-to-end monitoring, and Azure Networking for secure communication.
Yeah, hello, good evening from Germany. My name is Georg Deschler, but you can also call me George. And I'm with Bosch now since 2008. I've been in various projects and positions, including development, solution architecture, and project management. And currently, I'm a development team lead and an agile coach. And with my amazing team, I'm developing and operating an IoT solution for tracking of shipping assets and materials with the catchy name Track and Trace. Now, Track and Trace can be used to track many kinds of assets. But today our focus, as I said, lies on customers that use it for logistics assets. That's like containers of any size. These customers can save effort for finding lost assets and save money by managing their empty assets more efficiently, because it's better to find your empty asset than to buy a new one. How does it work from the technical perspective? Well, someone on the shop floor attaches a wireless tag to an asset, which is continuously broadcasting its ID. They also create a logical link between the asset and tag using a mobile app. Gateways, not the application gateway, but hardware gateways in the field are receiving these broadcasts and transfer the information to the backend. So you know where the tag is, and with that also where your asset is. Data is received by an application gateway and handed over to the core system, which consists of about 15 microservices. And those 15 microservices are running on Azure Spring Cloud. We have many different views and reports based on the data that are presented in our UI. And the process data can also be sent to customer systems.
Hi, everyone. My name is Devin Yost. I am the principal architect within the IT infrastructure leadership team at Digital Realty, and I'm not a Java developer. My role spans across our cloud systems and network landscape globally. I favor repeatable, scalable, and architectural patterns. And I've led the architecture and implementation of a large-scale multi-region Azure Spring Cloud project this year. My team is made up of a lot of different types of people: developers, business analysts, cloud engineers, and product managers. I'm an engineer at heart, and I love solving complex problems with creativity and elegance. Digital Realty supports the data center, co-location, and interconnection strategies of customers around the world, ranging from cloud and information technology services, communications, and social networking, to financial services, manufacturing, energy, healthcare, and consumer products. We operate over 290 data centers in 24 countries and on 6 continents. The architecture that we're looking at on the screen is our design for a new platform that will be customer facing, and it'll allow them to build integrations and consume data from us about their services. Azure Spring Cloud is at the center of hosting these REST APIs that power the platform, and we leverage multiple regions for Spring Boot microservices following the hub and spoke model. Our solution is fully automated end-to-end, including our virtual Palo Alto firewalls at the edge.
Wow, that was awesome. We got to see an overview of what Azure Spring Cloud looks like, so everybody should have an idea for what the experience is like using it. And we heard from our customer panel about how the architectures they're using. One of the things that I hear a lot in my interactions with clients is that cloud can be confusing. So I'd love to hear from our panelists, how does Azure Spring Cloud fit into your cloud strategy? What were some of the considerations that you had to go through when you selected it as a service?
We leverage Spring Framework for most of our development, and Azure Spring Cloud is at the heart of our strategy for implementing global security settlements platform. We are leveraging open source technologies, and multi-cloud portability is a key design principle. Improving developer productivity is one of the goals for our transformation, and Azure Spring Cloud contributes towards that goal by taking away the complexities of managing our own Kubernetes clusters. It allows us to focus on implementing complex business features and not having to keep the infrastructure up to date. We use automatic containerization from Spring Boot sources or jars, as Asir mentioned, to allow us to define a roadmap for modernizing on-prem applications and deploy them to cloud at a faster pace. It's very easy for us to configure, deploy, monitor, and scale our Spring Boot apps using Azure Spring Cloud. And built-in lifecycle management, ease of automation and monitoring enables us to scale our deployment and also our development team, right? So we started with a smaller development crew, and now we have really scaled out our development teams. And having a service like Azure Spring Cloud allows us to keep our automation pipelines running and scale, not just production, right? And as I mentioned in the intro, Azure Spring Cloud is at the heart of our platform. All our command and event handlers are deployed in Azure Spring Cloud.
Yeah, we didn't have much interest in getting involved with Kubernetes, Docker images, and the like. We have a very focused team, a small development DevOps team, and previously we were working with Cloud Foundry and its build packs. So Azure Spring Cloud seemed to be an attractive option there for us. We've now migrated about 15 microservices to Azure Spring Cloud. And still, we want to use the major share of the team's capacity for further development of our product. And therefore, it's helpful not having much more to do than building a fat jar to get the services deployed. We weren't sure if this would also work out for some of our services based on Vertex, but it does. And so we were able to move the complete solution to Azure Spring Cloud and have everything on this one runtime environment. Another point that's really important for us from a business perspective, as well as technically, is scalability. Track and trace is still growing, and we're placing many more tracking devices in the field. So we're about planning to triple the amount in the near future. And so the monitoring functionalities are very valuable, not only to identify issues during daily operations, but also to see which parts of the system we need to focus on to allow our business to grow.
So how does it fit into our cloud strategy? Well, we selected Azure Spring Cloud because we also didn't have the desire to manage Kubernetes. So there's a theme there. We also didn't have the skills, within our teams, and we wanted to start development almost immediately without long runways to setting up infrastructure and networks, as well as Kubernetes clusters. So Azure Spring Cloud allows us to scale horizontally quickly and easily. And we leverage several sets of ARM templates for new region deployments globally, including fully automated management of our virtual Palo Alto firewalls at the edge and a baseline of VNet peering rules. We currently have about 30 Spring Boot microservices deployed to our Azure Spring Cloud across 2 regions, and we aren't even in production quite yet. When it's all said and done, we anticipate having somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 microservices within our current scope.
For cloud strategy, I really like how you have approached it from portability, productivity, and faster time to market. And then you chose Azure Spring Cloud, where you can focus on your business objectives without worrying about the underlying infrastructure. Let me recap some of the points we heard as well. So Azure Spring Cloud is a fully managed service by Microsoft and VMware. It is built on Kubernetes, except you don't have to learn or manage it. It's easy to create, configure, deploy, monitor, and scale. And it is, as our panelists spoke today, it is at the heart of Morgan Stanley, Bosch, and Digital Reality Trust architecture, and the service powers Spring Boot applications. Now, day in and day out, when we talk to our developers and customers, they tell us that security is a critical consideration for any enterprise application. We love to hear, how do you enforce security policies across your Spring Boot applications?
So for us, the architecture of our Spring Boot microservices follows application development best practices, DTAP, cloud and network security best practices of segmentation and a zero trust model. Cross-environment routing is disabled, forcing the use of release and build pipelines. We also leverage managed identities, certificates, access policies, and keys and secrets inside of segmented Azure Key Vaults by the environment. Our application then follows an RBAC model, and each end user or machine is authorized via claims. And we do code scanning as part of our release pipeline for credentials and other security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, for us, being a financial institution, security is extremely critical. Our dedicated team of cybersecurity experts is drawn from former senior professionals at government security agencies and the technology industry. I think all developers should be thinking about how we make each interaction secure and think through various threat scenarios. This is very important for building secure cloud-native applications. We implement every application in a landing zone with RBAC policies that are reviewed by a centralized tech risk team to ensure consistency and strength of controls. We use infrastructure as code to configure the services to mitigate the risk of human error. We also handle security at multiple levels in our solution, leveraging concepts like network segmentation and VNet peering. We also use private endpoints as another network control. Implementing zero trust based interaction models, which assumes nobody is trustworthy by default, even though they already are inside our network segment. Leverage Azure Key Vault for secrets management. We encrypt all of our data in transit, at rest, and in use. Having shorter expiration of our identity tokens and frequent certificate rotations. We also have checks in our build pipelines to ensure any secrets don't leak out via code repository.
Yeah, for Bosch, security is an undisputable quality requirement of our IoT solutions. That's why we have a process in place that's also enforced as a central directive and that we follow to ensure it's considered sufficiently in software engineering. So to make the application of security measures even easier, we have a corporate implementation guide for Azure that our central IT department elaborated together with Microsoft. This tells us how to use Azure services properly to reach a required level of security. So for example, it tells us to use a certain service tier to be able to use a VNet integration, or it tells us how to do a certain configuration of a service. But of course, still you need to apply it to your needs and check if this is sufficient or if you have even requirements that go beyond it. We also implemented the reference architecture as it's recommended by Microsoft. Azir, you will remember the call we had with the guys also from Germany, where you looked into our architectural plans and told us, yeah, should do it like that, should place the application gateway there, have the networks done like this. It was very helpful for us, so we didn't have to figure everything out on our own. And yeah, so now, among other things, we realized network segregation, we keep our secrets in Key Vault, and we use managed identities. All the respective policies are implemented using Bicep. So we make sure they are incorporated on provisioning the services. And additionally, we're also able to trace the security requirements, for example, from this implementation guide I mentioned, simply by commenting the scripts properly.
Awesome. Wow. I mean, I'm just blown away by how many security best practices you're able to easily implement on Azure Spring Cloud. The big things I heard were how you're able to do zero trust and isolate workloads from each other, the fact that you have easy access to secrets management, and you're able to kind of take very complex information security requirements and just make it easy to build on top of what your corporate security teams have done. So that's pretty awesome. One of the, we talked about why you would use Azure Spring Cloud. We talked about the security aspects, but that's not enough. as dev teams, we need to know what our applications are doing. We'd love to hear, how do you handle end-to-end monitoring for your applications, and what tools are you using for your applications?
Yeah, so our platform is a very mission critical app, right, which needs a very high level of monitoring and alerting. We use application insights to collect application logs, traces, and metrics. And then with open telemetry, we correlate the logs using traces and spans. We leverage application map to look at the health of our overall platform. It definitely helps us kind of spot performance bottlenecks or failure hotspots. And as Asir showed in the demo, you can drill into individual interactions and identify where the bottlenecks are. We also use Azure Monitor for querying the collected telemetry information and have integrated with the leading observability players to enable monitoring and automated notification and escalation. We also use our logs to measure processing and response rate to maintain our SLOs.
We also use application insights and log analytics. And we also have alerts configured for critical metrics and dashboards for a quick overview. For our team, alerts work quite simple via email, or also if it's really important incidents, we have some webhooks that enable direct messaging the team members. With log analytics, we're able to handle our logs very similarly to our old environment, where we used another logging and monitoring platform. Learning Custo as a new language isn't too difficult for the team. This other platform had a similar query language, so accessing the logs and really getting insights from them works quite similar for us right now. For checking the health of our apps and investigating issues, we found this application map to be very useful that Azir also showed in the video. He showed it in a private presentation also to us, and it was really amazing for us to see how it draws your attention to the right spots, and be it a certain service or also the interaction between them, performance issues, or also really error rates. From there on, in any case, we were able to dig deeper and identify issues. This helped us a lot directly after migration to identify some configuration issues and bottlenecks we couldn't find with our tests.
So we also use Azure Monitor, App Insights, and Log Analytics. As everyone else does, those are really great cloud native platform or tools within the platform that we can leverage. We are also experimenting with webhook actions into teams for certain types of event data so that the team can action them immediately, because we're not in production yet. So we have a vision to go beyond the traditional monitoring and incorporate also self-healing technology and event aggregation, leveraging products such as MuleSoft and App Dynamics to adopt a more event-driven architecture.
I really like how you all have set up some real-time end-to-end monitoring. Now, as I was watching those monitoring graphics, we can see that you have some incredible views of your system, meaningful insights directly into your business as seen through the system, and actionable logs and metrics. It's also amazing to hear how you can dig deeper into those issues directly with from the dashboards, right? So to recap, you can monitor your Spring Boot applications and end-to-end solutions, including all the resources and your on-prem resources around Azure Spring Cloud. You can monitor apps and the end-to-end solution using any platform and tools of your choice. You can troubleshoot your applications, measure SLAs and SLOs just like the way Dhiren explained. You can plan capacities by running your performance establish what is the baseline for everyday workload and peak load, just like the way how George explained as well. And you can keep an eye on production, and you can use any tools as you want, like how Devon explained. With that, today we learned a lot about different architectures by Bosch, Digital Reality Trust, and Morgan Stanley. It looks like you have different drivers for scaling your applications. I heard IoT devices, trades, and end users. So how do you scale your applications? And what is driving that need? And what types of approaches do you utilize for efficient use of resources in cloud?
Yeah, Azure, I guess you already guessed it when you mentioned it. As we have an IoT application, the number of connected devices is the primary driver of our scaling needs. Data is transferred from the devices to our backend at a quite constant rate in our case. And that's why so far we are happy with manually scaling the app. Yet this is not a trivial task, as there is quite some processing and enrichment going on with the raw device data we receive in the backend. So some aggregations and stuff. And so to determine the needed capacity for our different microservices, we're running load tests regularly. We're simulating a number there of devices that we expect in the nearer future. We do that on our QA environment, and we check system health, again, using the application map. Then we try to turn it from red to green, right? So based on the results, we configure the service instances so that everything runs smoothly so far. Of course, it can also happen that we stumble upon parts of the system that could run more efficiently. And then we derive the necessary changes and place them in our backlog for further planning, so they can be prioritized versus new features or something, right? And additionally, we also use Azure Cost Management to keep track of the budget so we don't get surprised by huge bills.
For us, our architecture was designed in a way to scale globally because our customers are literally everywhere except maybe Antarctica. We took the reference architecture from Microsoft and kind of plugged that into our needs. So we have some additional connectivity that we attached onto our environments globally so that we can retrieve data sets that are on-premise. For efficient use of resources, we rely upon auto-scaling in the upper environments and leverage the features in Azure Cost Management to establish the spend thresholds and watch them. We're working on identifying a long-term strategy for log retention to minimize log analytics costs and also to be in compliance with corporate retention policies for logs. Spring Boot microservices will be the engine behind a new product launch for the company, and we anticipate very heavy loads. We are modeling multiple different volume trends based upon current usage insights from existing products by performing regular load testing with JMeter. Our load tests are originated from different geographical locations around the world and from multiple different device types, including cell phones, tablets, virtual desktops, and also machine to machine.
For us, the average number of trades varies per day, right? Like this can be driven by various economic events or company-specific needs. We also have a cutoff time for each of the settlement markets, and there can be spikes in activity towards the end of the day, right? And as I mentioned, we have a multi-year plan to roll out the platform and introduce new markets. So for us, we have to look at scalability from two angles, right? One is ability to handle very day-over-day volumes and ability to handle that spike towards the cutoff times. And secondly, as we introduce new flows and onboard new markets, how are we going to handle the increased volumes? When we first started building the solution and we had the framework, we ran automated performance tests, right, to kind of get an idea of what we call a scale unit. So this tells us, like, with a given deployment configuration, how many trades we'll be able to process per second. We are then going to leverage this as we deploy additional markets to finalize our deployment strategy. We plan to use the auto scaling features in Azure Spring Cloud based on the depth of incoming subscriptions. We also have geo-redundancy, right? So we have to make sure there is no data loss. So we have a redundant region where our applications are running. It's running with a very scaled down configuration, right? But in the event we have to fail over, we'll be scaling that up. We have also enabled financial transparency to monitor the price of our cloud usage, right? It's very important to make sure we are using our resources efficiently.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I mean, I really heard a couple of things in there. One is that everyone has two needs for scaling. One is the short term, I need to scale up because I got more load, and you're able to do that with the auto scaling features of Azure Spring Cloud. But also, all of you mentioned that you have your business is growing, and you're looking to Azure Spring Cloud to help you scale up as your business grows. You add more IoT devices, and enter more markets. So that's pretty awesome. That's wonderful. And one of the things that is always part of all these cloud native projects is the idea of automation, and having repeatable processes and infrastructure as code and all of that. So I'd love to hear from you. What are your business needs for automation? What tools are you using? How are you building all of this in a way that follows modern DevOps and SRE practices?
Yeah, so once again, we have to move fast. I'm sure all of you watching and listening today can relate. We have rapid growth in our business, and we struggle very much to keep up with workloads that require manual intervention or manual processes, swivel chair, all of those sorts of things. So, really, it's because we're growing rapidly, and we have to in order to keep up with the demand. But also, we're trying to achieve standardization. It's nearly impossible if application and infrastructure are not automated and repeatable processes. You can't really ensure that you're building things the same way twice if you're not automating it. We do use Azure DevOps build and release pipelines, and that's our primary way of automating both all of the environments, and we use the ARM templates. We don't do Terraform. Our pipeline architecture includes code scanning with Veracode before the successful completion of the pipeline release. And we're working on integrating Azure DevOps with ServiceNow for end-to-end automation of production releases for compliance adherence, but also ease of promotion.
We use infrastructure as code and Terraform for everything. We have multiple environments that are fully managed by infrastructure as code. Our CI/CD pipelines execute a number of different levels of automated testing, and this includes chaos testing as well as deploying in an ephemeral environment and running end-to-end acceptance tests. Our deployments are 100% automated, and we use Azure DevOps pipelines. And this includes creation and configuration of all of our Azure resources. We also do staged zero downtime deployments, right? And we are already seeing benefits of improved cadence, like taking it to production, right? Like in our previous application, we had a monthly release cadence. Now we have a weekly cadence, and we are already we had to do a midweek cadence. So we do want to get to anytime deployment. And as I mentioned earlier, we started with a smaller set of developers, and now we have really scaled out our development organization. And we want to make sure we are conformant with our architectural principles, and we can frequently deploy good quality code with confidence. So automation is very, very critical for us.
Yeah, we also want to deliver fast and in high quality, just as Devon also mentioned. Speed is key. This is clear. And for us, it's also a clear QM requirement to have a high automation level to achieve this. And also to qualify the team for doing continuous delivery. This is a thing that's important for a company like Bosch. So we also have multiple environments. We use Bicep to describe them, so a third technology for infrastructure as code, and we're able to provision them automatically this way. We use different pipelines on Azure DevOps too. And so at first we do continuous integration on our QA environment whenever the master branch of a service is changed. And this step also includes at least automated unit tests. We also do have automated system tests. These are quite time-consuming as they need to simulate some real-time behavior, and so they're running a few hours, and we run them nightly in a pipeline. We have a pipeline of a friendly neighborhood team that is scanning code and dependencies for open source compliance and vulnerabilities before we release. And we have release pipelines for every service that allow us to deploy to production and run some smoke tests automatically.
It's great to see how you all have automated end-to-end. Digital Reality mentioned template, Morgan Stanley mentioned Terraform, Bosch mentioned Bicep for automating provisioning and configurations. And you're all using multiple pipelines using Azure DevOps, and you have automated testing and delivery of services. This is all great. So anyone can build end-to-end automation from idea to production using a wide range of automation tools and platforms. And just like the way all our panelists said, we see developers creating multiple pipelines that are broadly classified into provisioning pipelines, build pipelines, and deploy pipelines. We are running close to the time, so let's go to the last question. When we were staring at your architecture, we saw that you were leveraging many services and on-premise systems to build holistic solutions. So what are some of those requirements of your applications? Let's keep it short to move the question.
Sure. So for us, right, as I mentioned, our application is very mission critical, and there's a lot of complex business functionality that we need to build. So we have, from day one, we have taken the evolutionary approach to our architecture. And the transformation is not just a technology migration. We are looking to add significant capabilities which will drive end user efficiencies. We have a multi-year roadmap to complete implementation of a new platform, and this will involve adding new services which will help us implement the required capabilities with low or no code implementations. We currently use Azure SQL, Azure Key Vault, Service Bus, App Service, and Storage Account. We also use Azure SDK as Spring Starters for Java to interact with Azure resources. And our partnership with Microsoft is key, right? Like we have been talking to Asir about adding certain capabilities in Azure Spring Cloud to keep our implementation simpler, right? Our goal is to maintain our architecture principles as the ecosystem and our implementation evolves.
Yeah, after our recent migration to Azure, I mean, it's roughly a month now that we are there completely. We currently use Azure SQL, Service Bus, Redis Cache, Key Vault, Application Gateway, and some others. And now we're starting to investigate which services we could integrate into our architecture for improving certain parts of the system. Main drivers for this, again, are future reliability and scalability requirements. So we're having an open eye right now, checking many services, but primarily now we're really happy first to be there, to have arrived there. And yeah, we will just look what else we can use, what helps us.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick because I know we're running out of time. For us, resiliency and scalability, we need to be able to support a minimum of 25 million API calls per month. We have an availability requirement of 4 nines across the entire platform because it will be business critical for our customers. One of the biggest concerns that we have is latency. We are sourcing data from multiple different public clouds. So we want to make sure that those microservices can reach out and retrieve the data sets that they need to so that we can be at a sub 20 millisecond response time. Other services that we use are the Azure App Service Plan, Redis Cache, Azure Front Door, Key Vault, Event Hub, and JIT.
We really like how you have taken advantage of a range of services to build holistic Java and Spring solutions, particularly databases, cache, storage, service bus, vault for secrets, load balancers, and network elements. So thank you for explaining the purpose behind these choices. So Java and Spring on Azure is a holistic solution that brings together many Azure services. Microsoft and VMware brings the expertise of running enterprise Spring workloads at scale. Azure offers a differentiated portfolio of managed databases to serve Java applications of any type. You can see that on the screen. You can enable asynchronous messaging at cloud scale in Java apps using Service Bus and Event Hubs. You can secure access to your Spring Boot apps using Azure Active Directory. You can set up end-to-end monitoring using any monitoring platforms or tools of your choice. You can automate end-to-end using any automation tools or platforms of your choice. You can secure your workloads by isolating them from the internet, secure them by applying many of the policies, security policies that we discussed today. On behalf of Adib and myself, thank you, Dhiren, George, and Divan for joining us and sharing all the details, your experiences and insights. It's truly, truly inspiring to hear your journeys to production and how you have navigated through Azure services, particularly Azure Spring Cloud, and framed your strategies, enforced security, and set up end-to-end monitoring and automation, and built these holistic solutions for your workload. Also, very happy to see that you have used tools and platforms that your teams know and are familiar with. Now, everyone watching today can build cloud-native solutions and advance them to production. We love to hear how you are building impactful solutions using Azure Spring Cloud. You can get started today. You can deploy your first Spring Boot app today. You can also use a self-paced workshop to learn the details of the service. If you prefer videos, we have bite-sized videos. We have great YouTube videos. Follow the Spring playlist. You can also leverage best practices for deploying Spring Boot apps, just like the way panelists explained today. You should let us know how you are building these impactful solutions. Now, we will continue to make engineering investments to make it even easier to accelerate Spring Boot apps to cloud at scale. For that, we like to hear from you. We like your thoughts. We like your thoughts on Spring Boot scenarios. Share your thoughts and enter to win one of 16 grand prizes. This is a good deal, don't forget. But the most important thing is you have to share your thoughts. Any thoughts is appreciated. This will really help us to bring the best on the Azure cloud along with our partnership with VMware. Yesterday, Microsoft and VMware announced Azure Spring Cloud Enterprise. If you're interested, then please sign up, go to the registration form and click on Contact Me, and you will receive information to activate the private preview. Everyone on the live stream, on behalf of the panelists and Adib, thank you for joining us today. We'll go to the Zoom link and we'll be available there to answer your questions live. So thank you again.
Great. Thank you so much, gang. I know we all appreciate hearing different perspectives, especially from practitioners. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And folks, join the chat, ask them directly some more specific questions, and see how you can relate to some of their experiences and learn from their experiences. So thanks again. Stick around. We've got another great, perhaps even magical session coming up.